So without any further ado, I'm gonna get over to our stone crabs group.
Hi everybody, thanks for joining our presentation today. My name is Hannah.
And I'm Sarah.
And we work with stone crabs, so we're gonna tell you a little bit about them today and what we do with them. So what do? We help monitor the stone crab fishery, and we do this by sampling traps at 10 different locations across the Gulf of Mexico. So these dots on the map are our locations. We're responsible for Sanibel, Marco, and Pavilion. Those are the ones that we pull. At each location, there's 4 different lines that have 5 traps each, so that makes for a total of 20 traps. We count the number of crabs and any bycatch in our traps. So bycatch is any non-target species. So this can be fish, other crabs, snails, sea urchins, even sometimes small nurse sharks. We collect various data on the crabs, and we'll go into that a little bit more next. And we also take measurements of the temperature, salinity, and dissolved oxygen of the water. And the quality of the water is important to know, as it can help us find patterns within the stone crab populations, like if they are moving offshore to find cooler waters, or if they're moving to escape low dissolved oxygen areas.
So what kind of data do we collect? Well, one important thing we get on every crab is we determine the sex. So on the left-hand side, you have a male crab, which has a narrower apron, and on the right, we have a female crab. So notice the wide apron there. So that wide apron is where she's going to carry her eggs. That's going to help protect them when she is moving around and keep them safe from other predators.
So we also note the reproductive stage, and this is mainly for female crabs because male crabs won't carry eggs, it's only the females. So like we said, the apron carries the eggs, and it's an egg mass, which is called a sponge. And as they develop, they change in color from this bright orange to a brown to a gray. And the egg mass can contain anywhere from 160,000 to over 1 million eggs per egg mass. And as the female gets larger, she will have more eggs in her sponge. And it takes them about 2 weeks to hatch.
So some other data that we collect is the molt condition. So crabs molt in order for them to grow larger. And we, as they grow, their outer shell, which is known as their exoskeleton, does not grow with them. So this means the crab must shed their shell in order to grow, molting. When the crab is ready to molt, it separates the shell from its body and backs right on out of it. After molting, the crab then is going to pump water into its body to expand its new, very, very, very soft shell. And this takes about 3 days for that soft shell to then harden into a much stronger protective shell that you see. And we have a video here that we're going to show you of one of our crabs molting.
So you can see that it has split its exoskeleton and is starting to back out of its exoskeleton. And it's very soft and looks almost squishy-like, not like a typical hard crab that you're used to seeing. And that process can take, a little bit of time for the crab to get all the way out. But I thought it was interesting to show. We also note their claw type. So stone crabs have 2 types of claws. They have one crusher claw and one pincer claw. And you can tell the difference because a crusher claw is going to be much larger than a pincer, and it's also going to have these large teeth that the pincer does not have. And so stone crabs like to eat other snails and clams, things that live in hard shells. So what they do is they hold their prey with their pincer claw, and then they use their crusher to crush the shell of the animal they're trying to eat so that they can get to the meat inside.
So the big difference with stone crabs compared to some other crab species out there is how strong they are. So to assess this question, we looked at their crushing force. So the crushing force is measured by the pounds exerted per square inch, or PSI, as you've probably heard of. The higher the PSI, the greater the crushing force. So we've got some examples here. A grizzly bear, big bear, 1200 PSI, that's a lot. Hippopotamus, 1800 PSI. American alligator, as we all know, 2125 PSI. And then a great white, 4000 PSI, and that's a lot. So how does the stone crab measure up to that? And when we are talking about their crush force, we're just referring to their large crusher claw. 19,000 PSI. So these guys are going to cause some damage, and they have a lot of strength, and they can break through just about anything they can get their claws on.
So another type of claw type that we look at is whether their claw is original or regenerated. So if a stone crab loses a claw, it can grow it back. So here's an original versus a regenerated, and how you would tell them apart is what we call their fingerprint mark on the inside of their claw. So on an original claw, the lines are going to be continuous. On a regenerated claw, they're going to be dashed. So that's how you can tell those apart.
So each time a crab molts, the regenerated claw is going to get a little bit bigger. So the same process is also going to occur with their walking legs, as you can see. And when these new legs are in the process of growing back, as you can see in all these different pictures here, we call these little growths buds. And each time they molt, those buds are just going to continue to get larger and larger until they have a fully functioning leg or claw again that they can use.
And the last bit of data that we collect on the crabs is different measurements. So each claw is measured from the inside of the elbow to the tip of the bottom claw. And this is also how fishermen determine if the claws are legal to harvest. So the stone crab fishery is unique because only the claws are harvested from the crab. The whole crab is not taken. So basically, if the claws are legal, the fisherman takes the claws and then returns the crab to the water. So that hopefully it will regenerate its claws and re-enter the fishery, and that animal will be able to be harvested from again in the future. And we also measured the top of the crab, called the carapace, at the widest part.
So why is all this data about these crabs important? Well, 99% of all stone crab claws harvested in the United States come from right here in Florida. So this is really important that we monitor that. It's one of the top 5 fisheries in Florida, which economically is very important for us. It's worth over $30 million a year. Over 2 million pounds of claws are harvested each season. So this data that we collect is all used to determine the stock and how the stock is doing. And this way we can monitor it and make sure it's doing okay and make sure we're not overfishing or taking too many out of the population before they've had a chance to regrow their claws. And this also helps us determine if they're healthy and that for many generations to come. So, you know, maybe the next couple generations of you guys will be able to see some of these guys. And now we have a special treat for you.
So this is a stone crab, and this one is a female, and you can tell because of the large apron that covers basically the entire abdomen. And this is the crusher claw. It's much bigger than the smaller pincer claw.
All right, and so here we have a male. So you see his smaller apron and large crusher, smaller pincer. In this case, we actually have an original crusher claw and we have a regenerated pincer claw, which is really cool. So we see that in action. But that's another thing to note with the female and the male crabs. The male crabs are larger and they will get larger than the females will.
All right, so we'd be happy to take any questions that you guys have for us.
Excellent. Great, thanks. Well, yeah, at this point, like they said, we're going to move into our Q&A portion here. And it looks like we got a question from Denise, who asked, my family loves catching stone crabs. We love to eat them. Where are some of the best places in Florida to find stone crabs?
Yeah, unmute.
Oh, are we muted?
Nope, you're good.
Oh,
Okay.
So stone crabs like hard bottom. So really anywhere that has hard bottom. There's a really big fishery for them here in Southwest Florida. Also down in the Keys, a lot of stone crabs are harvested, but they can be found all throughout the Gulf Coast. Inshore
And offshore. So you know, they move. So sometimes they're going to be inshore for a little while and then they're going to move offshore at times too. So it just all depends.
Excellent. All right. We have a question from Will, who asked, do they crawl fast?
They definitely can.
Faster than they look. They are a lot faster than they see.
And like we said, they migrate, so I mean they can travel miles and miles, so they can be quick when they need to be.
And we had a couple questions of people just wondering, how big can stone crabs get?
What would you say the largest claw we have? Well, I don't know.
We've seen from one of our commercial fishermen, he had a claw. The claw on that crab was about 130 millimeters, and he has a claw from a crab that was about 176 millimeters. So that's the largest that personally we've seen, and yeah, I don't know if there's any bigger than that.
Okay.
If they are, they're hiding. So.
All right. We have a question from Charlotte, who asks, can a stone crab's crusher claw crack a turtle shell? Might be a hard one to answer. Maybe more of a question for a turtle biologist, but
yeah, I'm not quite sure how hard a turtle shell is, or if they would really encounter each other. I'm not really sure.
I think if he, yeah, that would be their biggest difficulty, is if they were able to get their hands on one first. So, yeah, I'm not sure. Good question.
That's a tough question.
Because that wouldn't be something that, a stone crab would really be interested in, would it?
They're probably going to get to swim away before they can.
Yeah, okay, gotcha. All right, we had a question from Denise, who asked, have you ever encountered anything unexpected when you're in the field, maybe, or anything like that?
I would say the first time we had a small nurse shark in one of our traps, that was very unexpected. Yeah. I did not think we would catch a nurse shark in our trap, so that was cool.
We've had other groups have had squid. Had squid come up in our traps, octopus come up.
Small red grouper.
Yeah, we've had juvenile Goliath grouper too. Obviously, when they're full grown, they won't fit in our traps, but he was a little guy.
It's always a surprise. You never know what you're going to get in the trap.
Looks like we have quite a few questions of people wondering of the various materials that stone crabs could crush. We have someone asking if their claws could break metal, which I don't know if that's ever been studied, but hey, that's a question from Professor X.
Oh,
I'm not quite sure what the breaking is for metal, whether 19,000 PSI would do that or not.
And I guess it depends on which metal we're
correct. Yeah, true.
Yeah, I mean, it all varies, but if they got their hands on it, they're certainly going to try.
We have a question here from Zach, who asked, do they live in swamps or in lakes, or maybe in any areas with brackish water?
Brackish water, yes, but lakes, you're not going to find them in a lake, but you can definitely find them inland. We see them at the docks, at the boat ramps. At some of our locations, they appear in the mangroves, just like right offshore. So they move around. I mean, they get, and then they go hundreds of miles offshore too. So definitely you see them, but not lakes so much. The water's gonna be a little too fresh for them, and it's gonna be a little hard for them to get there.
Okay, looks like I think we maybe have time for one more question here. Let's see, we kind of have a more general question of what is there a preference of foods that stone crabs go after, or what are more some of their, if there's a common thing that they eat, what would that be?
So really, the big thing with those guys is mollusks, like shellfish are going to be their biggest thing. So they're not going to be able to catch a fish swimming by typically, just because the fish are going to avoid them. But snails and things crawling on the bottom, clams, they will be able to pick those guys up, and that is their targeted species. And then anything that they can get out of a stone crab trap, they also will like to eat that too. But that's an easy food for them.
Excellent. All right. Excellent. All right. Well, I think we've answered most of the questions here. From thanks for submitting your questions, everyone. And thanks to our stone crab team here with Sarah and Hannah. We greatly appreciate it.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks a lot for joining us. Bye.